What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and I'm once again joined by my good friend, Degenerate Jay. We actually did a video yesterday, day before, some time ago, where we talked about Kingdom Hearts 4's timeline and other games' timeline. So just to kind of quickly catch everybody back up, if you guys haven't supported Jay on his channel, please do it. He's got a main channel. He's got a second channel, a Let's Play channel. He's covered Kingdom Hearts. He will be covering more of Kingdom Hearts. Really great guy, passionate fan, and like I've said before, we need more of these kind of people. So if you guys haven't subscribed there, please do it. Jay, thank you so much for being here with me.
Hey man, thanks for having me. And having Tetsuya Nomura, who is such a big influence with Final Fantasy, making almost a Final Fantasy-like series that's just its entirely own thing with Disney and Pixar and all these other things. It's really, really cool. I'm so excited for 4, and I'm excited to talk about this today.
Well, we had a tweet, and I generally agree with the tweet. Let's read the tweet out. So this comes from Miraculous Maku, Kingdom Hearts 20th. Damn, Nomura had considered an alternate timeline where Roxas and Xion didn't make it back, but he changed it because he knows how much fans love them. He is even making Kingdom Hearts 4 first because he knows fans are worried for Sora 2. You can't say this man don't think about his fans. And now what this is referring to, Nomura did a Q&A, lots of stuff he said in that. I kind of wish he wouldn't talk so much in Q&As because he's kind of ruining it for me a little. But no, I just like Jay, I respect the man a lot. I think he's a madman, but I love him to death, and Kingdom Hearts can't exist without him. So I just, when you hear stuff like this, well, number one, I love fan service, okay? I'm strictly in the boat of, I'm not saying do fan service just to do it. I'm not saying you have to do it every time, but I think generally listening to what fans have to say and making games, movies with fans in mind are a good idea. To shun them, to say, well, an entire group of you I hate, so this isn't for you, or if you don't do this, you are this kind of person. That stuff's no good. And that's more in movies than in games, and it's definitely not in like Japanese games like this. But something like this is kind of odd because I'm not going to go too in-depth with Xion. If you look back, I have a Kingdom Hearts playlist. We've talked about Xion before and why she doesn't actually make sense for Kingdom Hearts 3. There were a lot of liberties taken, basically lies and rewrites and stuff. Don't want to go too far into it, but it's not perfect how Xion can even be in this game, all right? Roxas, less of an issue. I don't really have an issue so much with Roxas being in it. And I'm in a pickle here, and this is why I brought Jay on here too, right? It's like, well, what do you do in this case, right? Because would this game have worked without them? Well, yeah, probably, but was it cool to see them in it? Oh, absolutely. Did it add something to the game? Yes, it did. But did it work? Did you need to do it? No, not, And so, but it's like, well, do you listen to fans? Do you not listen to fans? Through this stuff, we've also, I don't think it was in the same Q&A, but we know Nomura cut Riku's hair once because, in Kingdom Hearts 3, cut Riku's hair mid-battle because fans wanted an updated look. So he did it mid-fight. One cutscene, Riku has hair one way, next moment in the fight, Riku has hair another way. So, when you make decisions like that, to make it so serious, I don't want to be this serious guy where there's a Bible of Kingdom Hearts and you have to follow it, but some things I feel like you just have to let Nomura do. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know if he needs to in this way. Now, it was further explained that what he kind of means here is when he knows what he wants to do, but he just doesn't know how it's going to work with people, he'll still do it. It's more like when he's in a writer's block or he really doesn't know which direction to go, he will look to what fans say for inspiration of what to do. So it's not like he's on Twitter and he's picking the top 5 things every day. But so I guess, Jay, just kind of take it away from me a little bit. What do you think? How do you think this fan service kind of works with retaining a story, but then maybe you don't want to take the story so seriously that you end up in a psychiatric ward? What do you do?
Yeah, this is frustrating to me, positively and negatively, because it's a rough thing to talk about. I'm not going to beat around the bush and try and just play both sides of it, but I will say on both sides of it, you do have the issue of you have to be able to make something as a creator, right? You just have to be. But at the same time, the fans, they fund this stuff. They give you their money so that this stuff can be made. And even if you say, well, no, the company funds it, and then it just depends if it's profitable. Here's the thing. The series is dead if, say, Kingdom Hearts 4 came out and it sold 0 copies. That would never happen. But let's say just somehow collectively everyone got together like the Borg, all one hive mind, and they just didn't get Kingdom Hearts 4. Well, that series is pretty dead in the water now because that is a massive loss, obviously, for Square. So you kind of have issues of money coming into this too. And even beyond that, you also have almost, I would always argue, you have a moral obligation to be respectful with your art. I know some people will say you don't, but I think that once you release your art out into the world, yes, you're the creator, but you're relying on the world for that art to be successful, and you released it publicly for a reason because you wanted to share it. It's gets into certain things with like, are you entitled as a fan to change the franchise or do this or that? Then it gets into things with fan projects and all these other things. I think that one of my biggest problems with Kingdom Hearts 3 though is some of this stuff because yes, I want them to listen to fans. I think that fans are the reason this franchise is still around. Obviously Nomura too, but people playing it, people loving it, people having a passion, fan art, fanfics, all this stuff for years about Kingdom Hearts 3, keeping that alive. But at what point are you undoing the consequences of your own story by listening to those fans? That's kind of my thing, where anytime someone dies in a piece of media, you will have people that want them back. And I completely understand that. I've felt the same way. But if that death is done well, or if that storyline is wrapped up in a good way, at what point are you going back and undoing a lot of the I guess depth of it and a lot of the impact? I mean, if you look at Kingdom Hearts, I think a big problem that it has right now is the idea almost that no one can die, which was introduced more in Dream Drop and 3, I would say, than other games, but it was already kind of there back in 2, where if you became a Heartless and you died, essentially, and your heart left you and you became a Heartless, you were almost a mindless type thing, unless you were one of the Emblem Heartless or a very specific case like the Xehanort Heartless. The thing with that, though, was that there was still a, I guess I would say, a impact to that. There was a risk and stakes there. Then they introduced nobodies, and it was almost like, well, your vessel might not have a heart, but you're still alive as this nobody. And it started to kind of hit a point of like, well, okay, this might be undoing a little bit of that, but we can, work with this. And then now I think it's at the point where, like, if someone becomes a Heartless and they form a nobody, but you kill their Heartless and their nobody, they will reform as the original person, or even in a lot of cases just their nobody. They will go back to just being the normal person. And that's on top of all the stuff like bringing back Xion, bringing back Terra and restoring his body, bringing back Aqua, bringing back Ventus, Roxas, Naminé, the replicas, where now even if someone was separated from their body, they can be put into a new one, or the time travel where now if somebody did die, where, let's be honest, the Guardians of Light died in 3. They were dead. Their hearts were being taken off by the Reaper Heartless, which I always mess up his name, and Sora went back to basically undo their death and fix it. That's really what happened, and that's going to be a big thing with Kingdom Hearts 4 with Kairi as well, like we saw at the end of 3 and like we saw with Melody of Memory. The thing with this, though, is at what point does listening to fans diminish the impact and stakes of what you're trying to do? I guess that is my issue. It's less like, if fans want to see Star Wars, they want to see a Star Wars world, I think that's one thing. The conceptual stuff where it's like, fans have been asking for Star Wars for years now that Disney has it, or fans have been asking for this type of Keyblade, or fans have been asking to see what's going on with the Master of Masters. Those kinds of more conceptual things, I think, are the places where you really want to listen to fans. But when it comes to, can you please undo this death for me, I think it starts to become a little frustrating, because then you wonder why the original character arc happened in the first place and if it mattered.
And I think you touched on a good thing where it's like, it is a tough middle ground, and it's also, this franchise is immensely confusing, right? Like, and while I do believe Nomura, and maybe this is, I don't know if he's ever said this out loud, like, I feel like he's always had something planned. Because it just, everything kind of has worked out. As convoluted as everything is, it kind of has all worked, and you really, I don't think, can make it work unless you had some sort of idea at the beginning. So I feel like, you go back 20, 15 years ago, go back to Kingdom Hearts 2, I feel like, he always had an idea of expanding hearts, body. Now he's doing souls, right? Kingdom Hearts 4 is about your soul now in the afterlife, so that's fun. And but that's always been there. The thing is, though, it's so confusing confusing to 95% of the population that while I love fan service and while, you know, asking for Roxas and Xion on their own is not necessarily a bad thing, when you make it work last minute, that was actually another thing I think missed in here. His line, or when he answered this Q&A, this was like a last minute add-on. They weren't in the game, so he put them in there, and you know, it's almost like rushed, right? Like you have to create a new, and it could be like I could be grasping where it's like, well, I want a Kingdom Hearts franchise where it's Nomura telling his wild, you know, messed up fantasies, and if we understand it, we understand it. If we don't, we don't, but we follow it through and we get the natural conclusion without our, you know, without us like changing it, right? Without him having to readjust because we have like a question or whatever. Let's see what it's like. I get that's kind of like a Fantasyland-like thing, but at the same time, you know, when you have something like Roxas and Xion, you know, he has to adjust on the fly, and the story becomes even more, is now we have to like justify, you know what I mean? That's really what it is. Whether Xion makes sense or not, we now have to justify why it works in Kingdom Hearts, because guess what? It happened. And she was in the game, and Axel reunites, you know, or Lee, right? They're all reunited, and it's like, that's a fantastic scene. I love that. It's very beautiful. It's very bright, a lot of colors, but at the same time, it doesn't really make sense. But now we have to make it make sense. And the game is already crazy in terms of, you know, how convoluted it is. So, you know, it's, am I poking at something that doesn't exactly need to be poked, or I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it should? Maybe, probably, but I just, you know, it's already a game franchise that's so hard to understand, and then when you make drastic changes that don't seem like drastic, I mean, again, adding these two characters doesn't seem like a big deal, but it kind of is, specifically Xion, because it doesn't exactly work. So then, again, you have to figure out, well, why does it work? And the answer is, well, maybe it really doesn't work. It doesn't work in the game. It only works because he listened to us. And people said, let's get her back. And he said, all right, well, we'll get her. Does it make sense how we get her back? No, it doesn't need to, though, because people asked for it. And that's the, you know what I mean, that's the middle ground that's a little crazy. So, Jay, any final thoughts you want to say?
Yeah, I really do think it's important to listen to the fans on some stuff. Like, for example, I think you and I have talked about Kingdom Hearts 3 having issues, and you could take this back further, but I think 3 is the most recent one, so it's worth mentioning, with difficulty, where Kingdom Hearts 3 is ridiculously easy unless you crank it to critical. Even on Proud, I beat the game in level 40s. I probably could have put on that challenge run thing, stopped leveling up, and still beaten it, because it's not hard. But then you get to something like Remind, and it's way harder, where I did die a few times on even just Proud and not playing it on critical. So you kind of have issues like that with balancing, where I think you need to listen to community feedback, or worlds where people are like, hey, we haven't been back to this world in 10 years. Can we go back to it? Do you still have the rights? What's going on? Or even something like, you own these 35 properties, you've never done anything with it, you know? Treasure Planet or Star Wars or any of these things, or for a long time, Toy Story. Where are these things? Why do we not see them? I think those are kind of the areas where it's really important to listen to fans, because if you're Nomura, you can write in Endor as Star Wars. I know some people are going to like latch onto that they don't want Star Wars. That's fine. I think it would be cool. But you could listen to the fans and put Endor in and still do whatever else you want with the story, the overarching story. You don't need to undo a character death or bring back something that was already gone just because you put Endor in. But when you start getting into these specifics, like, I really want Riku to go back to this previous version, or I really want to see this guy again, you start to get into some very difficult ground that I think is just hard to maneuver and navigate as a creator. So I think it really needs to be balanced, where if you just ignore the fans, don't expect them to buy the game, because why would they? They just know they don't matter. But if you take every single fanfic and every little tweet into consideration when writing your story, that really can muddy it too.
Well said. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think this is a big deal? Do you think it's actually nothing? Let us know. Make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. I've made many Kingdom Hearts videos. I will continue to do so. And make sure while you guys are doing that, you guys are subscribed to Jay's channel. His links, or the links for both his channels, will be in the description below. Again, great guy. Obviously, as you guys can tell, knows his stuff. And he's done Kingdom Hearts videos before. before, and this will not be the last Kingdom Hearts video that he makes. So make sure you guys are supporting his channel. Jay, thank you so much for being here.
Hey man, thanks for having me, and I think we can all agree that as long as they don't undo Ericus, we're okay for now.
Well, one can only hope, or Xehanort. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.